we'll do the last pre-submitted question we have, and then we have a couple of live questions that have been typed in. So this next question, in making sure strategic planning remains alive and relevant and our efforts don't fall flat, what kind of resources should I budget for in terms of finances, human resources, etc.? Any other tips we should consider?
I think one of the really important resources is time. And I think you really need to schedule time to meet regularly, whether it be monthly or quarterly, but always really take the time to keep that plan in front of your people and really make a commitment to them to let them know that you think that planning really is something that you're really focused on, and that they regularly need to update their goals on a monthly or a quarterly basis, and that you will have monthly or quarterly meetings together as a staff to review the goals and how everybody's doing. The other thing, too, is, and to report out on the goals, but it's really important to devote time. And then, of course, align the financial resources. If there's a goal that needs financial resources, it's important to support that with money and also personnel. But really, I think to implement a plan and keep it alive really does, after it's developed, it really does, at first it will take a lot of work, but it really does take a fairly minimal work once it's built into the culture and everybody really is focused on strategy. But to have and also another point too, to have a fully executable plan, it's really important that each of the goals is assigned to someone, that there is a responsible party for each one of those. Do you want to add to that, Erica?
Yeah, one thing that we've been talking a lot about lately around here is the fact that strategic planning is the means to an end. And so what's the end? The end is building an environment, building a culture, building a culture of what? Building maybe a culture of strategic thinking, maybe building a culture of performance management. There's probably all kinds of other words that we could add to that, and it's something that we've been thinking a lot about, as I mentioned earlier, and you can see we're still mulling around with it just a little bit. But when we come across the questions around how do we keep our strategic plan alive, the lens to look at this through is keeping it alive means that we are taking action and behaving as an organization in a way that is in harmony and unison with what we say is important. So if we say these 5 strategic priorities are important, then we are making choices. It's all about making choices, We're making choices about how we spend our time and how we spend our money accordingly. And in the minute we don't do that, then the strat plan is useless, because we are no longer being true to what we said was important as an organization, and leaders are responsible for setting that tone. As Nancy mentioned, we have to get together and talk about how we're doing. That's just the way it is. A great quote is, the heartbeat of any strategic management process is your quarterly or monthly business reviews or strategy reviews. If you don't have them, you don't have a process. That doesn't mean that you need everybody to be at the table, but the report up of how we're doing is the critical component to check in. And as Nancy said, it doesn't need to take a lot of time. That's why we built our system to say, take 15 minutes, tell us how you're doing against your goals. And the point of that is to keep those in front of everybody, ourselves included, as well as to visibly have an accountability on a monthly or quarterly basis against our progress. And be able to come to the table and say something's not working. What are we going to do? Do we shift the priorities? Do we change our projects, etc.? So I think when we think about keeping strategic planning alive, the summary point on that is to say we're talking about trying to make a shift in how we behave as an organization, how we function as a group of people, and that's a cultural thing, and that requires goals that people know, that people have accountability for, status against those goals, and adaptation of those goals accordingly. So, and all of that means getting together and talking about them and remaining true to what we said our priorities are. So, some live questions, Ryan?
We do have 2 live questions, but first we had one person add in some comments on this. He said, in response to this question, you have also said in past huddles that strat planning is about accountability, but also done correctly holds people able. If it helps your people, they're able, and thus they benefit from it. So I think what they're saying is there's a stickiness to it. If you're making people able, it helps in the long run.
Yeah, I love that whole concept of instead of accountability holding people able. That's from Susan Scott. Great concept. Just a little bit of a twist.